She was falling at 120 miles per hour, strapped to her seat, a piece of the airplane still attached. For 2 miles she plummeted, spinning through the air, over a canopy of green so thick it looked like a solid floor. She hadn't eaten in hours, a fact that seemed trivial now. Her vision blurred, the jungle rushing up to meet her. And as she braced for the inevitable impact, the last thing she saw was the one thing that would both save her and become her prison. The trees. This is the story of Julian Koepke, and it is presented in a way that is strange, dark, and mysterious. Please do the like button a favor and tell it that you remembered its birthday, even though you totally forgot. That trip was supposed to be a joyful reunion. On Christmas Eve, 1971, 17-year-old Julianne and her mother boarded LANSA Flight 508 in Lima, Peru. They were flying to Pucallpa to meet her father, a renowned zoologist, for the holiday. Julianne was excited. It was a short, 45-minute flight over the Amazon rainforest, a journey she had made many times before. They'd packed light, expecting to be at her father's research station by the afternoon. The mood on the plane was festive, filled with families heading home for Christmas. They had no reason to believe this flight would be any different from the countless others that crossed the jungle every day. Then the sky turned black. A storm of unimaginable ferocity engulfed the Lockheed L-188 Electra. The plane, a tiny metal shell against the wrath of the Amazon, began to shake violently. Luggage and Christmas presents rained down from the overhead bins. The cheerful chatter turned to screams. Through the window, Julianne saw a flash of lightning strike the right wing. The fuel tank ignited. The wing wasn't just on fire. It was gone. The plane began to disintegrate around them. The last thing she heard was her mother saying calmly, "Now it is all over." The cabin depressurized. The roar of the wind became deafening, and Julianne was ejected, still strapped to her row of seats, into the open air. She awoke the next morning on the jungle floor. It was Christmas Day. Her inventory was grim. She was wearing a torn mini dress. She had lost one of her sandals and her glasses were gone, leaving the world a blurry, green mess. All she had was a small bag of candy, but she also had a broken collarbone, a gash on her arm, and a concussion. Her right eye was swollen shut. The jungle wasn't just a place, it was an entity. The incessant buzzing of insects was a constant threat. The humid air was a crushing weight, promising dehydration. The silence was broken only by the sounds of things that wanted to eat her. For the first few days, she was in shock, waiting for the sound of rescue helicopters. She heard planes overhead, but the dense, 50-meter-tall canopy made her invisible. They flew right past. The crushing realization hit her. No one was coming. It was a psychological blow that could have broken her. The voice of the quitter whispered that it was pointless, that she should just lie down and let the jungle reclaim her. But the survivor, the girl raised by 2 zoologists in this very jungle, took over. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "If you are lost, find a stream and follow it. Water always leads to civilization." The jungle began to take its toll. Her skin, pale and exposed, was a feast for mosquitoes. The gash on her arm became infected, and as she looked closer, she saw something horrifying. Maggots were writhing inside the wound. Days bled into nights. Time became a blur of green and pain. She couldn't remember if it had been a week or an eternity. She had long since finished the bag of candy. The hunger was a physical pain, a constant gnawing in her stomach. This was the turning point. The civilized girl who was disgusted by bugs disappeared. She became an animal. She saw the maggots in her arm not just as an infestation, but as a sign. Her father had once treated their dog's maggot infestation with gasoline. It was a grotesque memory, but now it was a lifeline. On the 10th day, a small stream fed into a larger river, and there, moored on the bank, was a small, empty boat with a canister of gasoline inside. She poured the fuel into her wound. The pain was excruciating, but one by one, she pulled over 30 maggots from her flesh. In that moment of agony, she knew she wasn't going to die. She had beaten the jungle at its own game. The next morning, she saw a small hut. As she stumbled toward it, 3 local lumbermen emerged. They stopped dead in their tracks, staring at the creature before them. They saw a skeletal girl with one eye swollen shut, covered in mud and insect bites, her arm a mess of blood and gasoline. They thought she was a water spirit from local folklore. It took her a moment to explain, in Spanish, who she was. The men, in disbelief, gave her food, tended to her wounds, and took her by canoe to the nearest town. She was the sole survivor of Flight 500. Julianne Koki returned to Germany, became a biologist, and dedicated her life to studying the Amazon. The jungle that tried to kill her became her life's work. She didn't just survive the fall. She survived the jungle itself, proving that sometimes the most terrifying places on Earth can forge the most unbreakable human will. If you enjoy these stories, you can find even more in-depth cases on our new podcast, The Strange, Dark, and Mysterious Story, available wherever you get your podcasts.